Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 59, entitled The Killing of the Demon Naraka. Text. 43? 43. Griheshu tasam anapayi atarka krit nirasta samyam atishayeshu avastita Reme Ramabhi Nija Kama Sampluta Yatha Itara Garhaka Medikan Charan Griheshu tasam anapayatarkakrin Griheshu tasam anapayatarkakrin Nirasta samyatishayeshvavastitaha Nirasta samyatishayateshvavastitaha Reme Ramabhi Nijakama Sampluto Reme Ramabhi Nijakama Sampluto Yate Taro Grahaka Medikam Charan Yate Taro Gar Haka Medikam Charan Griheshu tasam anapayadarkakrin Nirasta samyatishyateshvavastitaha Reme Ramabhi Nijakama Sampluto Yate Taro Grihaka Medikam Charam Griheshu tasam anapayatarkakrin Nirasta samyatishyateshvavastitaha Reme Ramabhi Nijakama Sampluto Yate Taro Grahaka Medikam Charam Mataji? Griheshu, in the residences, tasam, there, anapayi, never leaving, atarka, inconceivable, krit, performing deeds, nirasta, which refuted, samya, equality, atishayeshu, and superiority, avastita, remaining, reme, he enjoyed, ramabhi, with the pleasing woman, nija, his own, kama, in the pleasure, sampluta, absorbed, yata, as, itara, any other man, garhaka, medikan, the duties of household life, charan, carrying out. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Lord Performer of the inconceivable constantly remained in each of his queen's palaces, which were unequaled and unexcelled by any other residence. There, although fully satisfied within himself, he enjoyed with his pleasing wives, and like an ordinary husband, he carried out his household duties. Purport. The word atarka krit is significant here. Tarka means logic, and atarka means that which is beyond logic. The Lord can perform krit, that which is beyond mundane logic and hence inconceivable. Still, the Lord's activities can be appreciated and understood to a significant extent by those who surrender unto Him. This is the secret of bhakti, loving devotion to the Supreme Lord. Srila Sridhar Swami comments that the Lord was always at home except for when he had to go out to do ordinary household duties. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out that since in the Vaikuntha planets, Lord Narayan enjoys only with one goddess of fortune, and in Dwarka, Krishna enjoys with thousands of queens. Dwarka must be considered superior to Vaikuntha. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti also quotes the following passage from the Skanda Purana. That sounds good. Soda Shaiva Sahasrani Gopyastara Samagata Hamsa Eva Mata Krishna Paramatma Janardanaham Tasyaita Shaktayo Devi Shodashaiva Pratikritaham Chandrarupi Mata Krishna Kalarupasta Tuta Smritaha Sampurna Mandalam Tasam Malini Sodashi Kala Shodashaiva Kalayasu Gopirupa Varangane Ekaikashasta Sambinaham Sahasrena Pritak Pritak. At that place, 16,000 gopis were assembled with Krishna, who is considered the Supreme, the Super Soul, the shelter of all living beings. These gopis are renowned 16 potencies. O Goddess, Krishna is like the moon the gopis are like its phases, and the full contingent of gopis is like the full sequence of the moon's 16 phases. Each of these 16 divisions of gopis, my dear Varanangana, is subdivided into 1,000 parts. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti further quotes the Kartika Mahatmya section of the Padma Purana. Kaishore Gopa Kanyas Toyovane Raja Kanyakaha. Those who were the daughters of the cowards in their early youth became royal princesses in their maturity. The Acharya adds, therefore, just as the Lord of Dwaraka is a plenary expansion of the supremely complete Lord of Sri Vrindavan, so his principal queens are full expansions of his supremely complete pleasure potencies, the gopis. I will just read 2 more verses that end the chapter here. Text 44 and 45. Thus those women obtain as their husband the husband of the goddess of fortune, although even great demigods like Brahma do not know how to approach him. With ever-increasing pleasure, they experienced loving attraction for him, exchanged smiling glances with him, and reciprocated with him in ever-fresh intimacy, replete with joking and feminine shyness. Although the Supreme Lord's queens each had hundreds of maidservants, they chose to personally serve the Lord by approaching him humbly, offering him a seat, worshipping him with excellent paraphernalia, bathing and massaging his feet, giving him pan to chew, fanning him, anointing him with fragrant sandalwood paste, adoring him with flower garlands, dressing his hair, arranging his bed, bathing him, and presenting him with various gifts. Griheshu tasyam anapayatarka krinnirasta samya tishayeshu avastitaha reme ramabir nijakama sampluto yate taro gaharka medikam sharam. Translation one more time. The Lord Performer of the Inconceivable constantly remained in each of his queen's palaces, which were unequaled and unexcelled by any other residence. There, although fully satisfied within himself, he enjoyed with his pleasing wives, and like an ordinary husband, he carried out his household duties. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Chalaka Chakshurunmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stavitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shutapara Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shtam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Sham He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kantarada Kantanamastute Tapta Kanchana Gorangira Devrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Here we have a description of Krishna living in a Dwaraka, a spiritual realm with so many of his queens, and performing various kinds of activities that apparently represent activities of any ordinary household man. But we know, although Krishna, he is real Atma Rama, he is fully satisfied only within himself, but still he expands for the purpose of further enjoyment. And for which reason? For the reason of satisfying so many other living beings who are in need of having that relationship and reciprocation of Krishna. So here one of such kind of relationship has been described, and that is the one of the husband and the wife, which is the relationship of Svakya Bhav. That means the relationship of particular principles and rules that are followed between the husband and the wife. So Krishna is definitely enjoying here. He's not performing any kind of activities that wouldn't be part of certain kind of inconvenience or something that would bring him pleasure. He's definitely reciprocating with all the different living beings, his parts and parcels. And we see also that there is particular reciprocation of the queens also on their part. They also, which is very interesting, in the last verse it has been said, that they don't allow, though they have so many millions of practically maidservants, they don't allow them to directly serve Krishna, always. They also are involved in serving Krishna as much as possible. Just like we know in Mahabharata, Draupadi has been asked, I think by Subhadra, that how come you keep all of your husbands under control? What is the secret? And you have so many husbands, you have 5 husbands. And how can you keep them under control? How can you are having such a vibrant, dynamic, very intimate, close relationship? How is it possible? And then Draupadi revealed her secrets. She said that whenever they need something, whenever anything is required, I personally attend to those needs. I go to sleep whenever they are set to sleep, and I rise earlier before them. So whatever is required, she does that she does that personally. She doesn't depend on anybody else. So this is one of the keys of a very strong relationship, especially in the family life. Of course, in any kind of relationship, there has to be a very strong sense of surrender, sacrifice, and desire to please the other person. So Krishna is enjoying such kind of rasa. Krishna is enjoying such kind of relationships. But of course, sometimes we know in Dwarka, he lapses into thinking of pastimes in Vrindavan. And this is what queens sometimes are disturbed when they hear Krishna at nighttime during the sleep calling upon the names of someone else. But still, here Krishna demonstrates again, as he says in Srimad Bhagavad-gita, explaining to Arjuna, I don't have any duties to perform, yad yad charati shrestas, tatat evatarojana, sayat pramanam kurute lokostadanavartan. I don't have any duties to perform, I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Still I do that, because people would follow my example. So here Krishna exemplifies the position of a perfect husband performing his various duties. And here is described, he stays in all the different residences, palaces. It's not that he lives there, queens alone. Of course, only sometimes, as we said, sometimes when he thinks about Vrindavan, or just to attend certain other kind of duties. And he's always present, attending all these different responsibilities that he has. And he exemplifies such kind of relationship. So whenever we want to learn about any kind of relationship, any kind of dealing, we just have to not definitely, of course, just see what is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna represents all of those. And then how the husband should relate to the wife, how the wife should relate to the husband. Krishna is exemplifying all of those different, very minute, intricate dealings that exist in such kind of relationship. So what is the most important point here that has been brought up is that one of the most important point is that those different queens are expansions of the gopis, and this has been brought up by the acharyas, particularly Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He said that all these different queens are expansions of the gopis, and the queens have that particular relationship with the Lord, which is kind of a somewhat motivated relationship in a sense. There is still some reservation, there is still some desire, there is still some kind of reciprocation from Krishna's side that it's required. And it's not fully kind of selfless. It's not just like those which the gopis have. Gopis are, as we know, 100% surrendered to Krishna, without absolutely any reservation. Even though anything might be demanded from them, they're, from material point of view, they will not comply to that. And whenever Krishna plays his flute, then they're ready to abandon everything in an instant and just join the Krishna. So without any reservation, they're 100% fully surrendered to Krishna. Whereas it is described that queens are of Dwarka and somewhat they expect something from Krishna. There is like kind of 50-50 deal or dealings between them, that they expect certain type of reciprocation. And they will definitely surrender in that sense 100% to Krishna, but still they have expectation from Krishna. Whereas we know the gopis, absolutely they don't have any expectation. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the 8th verse of Shikshashtaka points out, Aslishlava padaratam pinashtumama darshanam armahatam karotuva. Just whether you embrace me, whether you reject me, whatever it is, they're fully surrendered to him. So the queens have some little reservation. And of course we know lower than that it's position of Kubja. We are not even at the level of Kubja where we desire even Krishna to satisfy our senses. So Kubja is still more elevated than we are. But these are different levels where one still approaches Krishna, or at least tries to develop certain relationship with Krishna, or it's attracted to Krishna. So here also what has been stated is that those different queens being the expansions of the gopis, and then from these different queens their position, we can understand that position of Dwarka as a realm, spiritual realm, is higher than the realm of Vaikuntha. Because in Vaikuntha, Sridhar Swami here comments, he says that, Vishwanath Chakravarti Tagore. He says that there is only one goddess. There's only one goddess. Of course, in different realms there are different Lakshmis with only one Narayan. But here in Dwaraka there is one Krishna and there are so many different kinds of queens attending to him. So therefore, it has to be concluded that the Dwaraka is higher realm. Of course, we know it's higher because of that relationship. It's more intimate rasa that goes on. So all these different expansions of Lakshmis are also expansion, therefore, of the queens. So from Srimati Radharani, then we have expansion of gopis, and from the gopis we have the queens, and then from the queens there are expansions of different Lakshmis. So now what is the secret of having certain experience that the gopis have? Well, this has been described in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. In the pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visiting Sri Rangam during Chaturmasya and having discussions with Venkat Bhatta. And then jokingly, after so many different discussions which they already had, they came across the 10th canto and were discussing the 10th canto, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu jokingly, in a friendly manner, pointed out that how is it that Lakshmi, which is so chaste, which is the emblem of chastity, that she desired to have the association of this coward boy. And who is Krishna? It's just the coward boy. It's not some opulent king. It's not some opulent, majestic personality, some kind of a controller and manager of the universe, or having any very important position. So how is it that she desired such kind of association? That why is this so? And then they have a very interesting discussion going on, in which ultimately it has been pointed out that Krishna is the all-attractive. Krishna is the all-beautiful Supreme Personality of Godhead, that even Lakshmi couldn't resist and desire to have that kind of association with the form of Krishna. Of course, they're non-different. Lord Narayan and Krishna are non-different. But still, Krishna exhibits certain features that Lord Narayan doesn't, and therefore she desired that association. But still, Lakshmi couldn't. Lakshmi couldn't enter into that association. Even though she came to Bilavan and performed certain type of austerities to have that kind of association, and she was practically eating one bell leaf a month or something, just performing enormous austerities, but she couldn't enter because she couldn't give up this bhav of opulence, this mood of Aishwarya, of awe and reverence. She couldn't give that up, and therefore she couldn't enter into that type of relationship and association with Krishna. So it has been pointed out in Chaitanya Charitamrita that she should have developed the bhav or the mood of the gopis. So it's not by the tapasya, like many times it is stated, and it may tend to be confusing that how these coward boys have been so fortunate, or somebody else it is pointed out that how much tapasya and austerities they must have performed to gain such an opportunity to be present in certain pastimes of the Lord. So we may tend to think that, yes, austerity is the key, that if I perform austerity and I sacrifice something, that I will also be able to enter into Krishna's pastimes. But that is not a fact. It's not just an austerity, there has to be particular mood. Of course, and not every living being also can develop certain mood. We all have certain svarupa. We all have certain original position that it's very pleasing to us. Like Hanuman, we know, if he would have been suggested any other relationship than serving his adorable master, Lord Ramachandra, he wouldn't be interested. As we know again from Chaitanya Charitamrita, the pastime of Murari Gupta. He wouldn't be absolutely interested in it. So they're living beings. So it's not just by certain process or certain method, one can attain certain position, just mechanically. But that doesn't, obviously, as in the case of Lakshmi performing pastime, it didn't yield any fruitful result. So it's not just by one's own personal endeavor that one can achieve certain position. It is by developing certain bhav, certain mood. But then even in that case, one definitely has to have the mercy of somebody who has that mood. So therefore, to enter into Vrindavan, one has to have the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan, and then being able or developing desire to develop also that kind of mood, that kind of desire to enter and act in such a way. So Lakshmi she couldn't renounce. She couldn't be just a coward girl or something in the Vrindavan. For her, it was difficult. So therefore, she wasn't capable to enter. So here we see this gradation of different relationships that one can have with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, within each and every type of relationship, a living being is satisfied in its own svarupa. So Lakshmi is also there, satisfied in the association of Lord Narayan. But of course, she, like we gave the example, she was hankering, she was thinking, she was hoping that, she was curious that what is it? What kind of relationship that is with Krishna? That what is it? So that element still remains. That it's still there. It can be there, but essentially we can understand that living entity is satisfied within whatever position one may be. Now, of course, Srila Prabhupada said, he made a statement that even though one may be at a particular place, particular position, having particular relationship, and one can still advance even from that point. One can still go further. Like, in a story of Gopa Kumar, of course, he originally was from Govardhan, from Vrindavan, but when he came to Vaikuntha, he wasn't satisfied. He wasn't satisfied. Because it was somewhat the distant relationship that he had with Lord Narayan. And then very interestingly, Lord Narayan himself, he told him that mantra that you use to come here, to qualify yourself coming to Vaikuntha planets, now you chant that mantra, chant the names of the Lord, and then you will qualify to go further to the higher realms. Like, we entered Ayodhya and then further to Dwaraka and Vrindavan. So it's interesting that by the process of chanting the names of Krishna, which is the beginning process which we are doing, it's also the ending process. as the final conclusion, one can reach the Golok Vrindavan. So anyway, so the different living beings essentially are satisfied in their own Svarupa, but there might be a chance, there might be opportunity to experience some other relationship, some other exchange with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of course, in any different form. So here these different gradations are mentioned of Lakshmis, queens of Dwarka, and the Gopis. And then, as we heard in the previous verse, there's been mentioned that when Lord Krishna, and Krishna married so many different queens, that also within each and every marriage ceremony has been expansion of not just him, but all of his relatives, parents, and everybody else. And that was something that was very astonishing to see for Narada Muni. So then, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that how is it that Krishna was present in all of those places? So he said that's something that is beyond the logic. It's something that we can't conceive. It's not easy to understand. Of course, how would it be to be able to understand Krishna? That would point out that we are pretty much almost something that it's greater than Krishna himself, if we would be able to understand Krishna. How could we confine Krishna within certain kind of frame of understanding? How is it possible for someone who is finite to understand the limits of infinite? How would that be possible? So if we can understand this, that's a very good understanding, that we can't do that. You know? Because Krishna is achintya, it is inconceivable. So to understand Krishna by logic, it will be just something like in Karma Mimamsa philosophy. There is a consideration that if we just perform certain rituals, then of course the God has to supply all of those. And He's is bound to give us whatever we deserve by performing certain activities. So that confines Krishna. And that's kind of in a sense, it's an atheistic understanding. So to understand Krishna, which is beyond practically any understanding, it's not possible. How can we limit Krishna? And how can we understand, how can any particular germ, maybe even ant or whatever, understand anything about this temple? What is the purpose of it? What is going on in this temple? What is really its size and structure and so forth? How is it possible? So how is it possible for us to understand Krishna's position? Which again, even more than that, it's ever expanding. What it means, Krishna, when he looks in the mirror, he always becomes attracted to himself. Or we know that pastime in Dwarka, again, in the marble floor or shining floor, seeing his reflection becomes attracted because his beauty is ever expanding. Everything is ever expanding. So how can we by logic understand, in that case, what is the beauty of Krishna? So logic, it's inconclusive, it is incomplete. We cannot understand. And this is why Srila Prabhupada points out here that all these expansions that have been manifested are beyond the logic, our logic to understand. We cannot confine the Lord. And how is it possible to understand? Well, it is possible by those who surrender to Krishna. That means bhakti. That is the secret of bhakti. Srila Prabhupada points out, Lord's activities can be appreciated and understood to a significant extent by those who surrender unto Him. So by a significant extent. So that doesn't mean fully. It means to whichever way one surrenders unto Krishna. Yeyata mam prapadyante tastataiva vijamyaha mama vartmanu vartante manusha partha sarvashaha. So that means, how do we surrender to Krishna? What kind of level of bhakti we have? And that's why also here, how to understand Krishna, that's why the example of gopis has been given. Unalloyed, 100% full surrender and sacrifice for the pleasure of Krishna. And that's why gopis understand Krishna the most. And that's why they're ready to fully dedicate and sacrifice themselves to Him. So to whichever extent we want to understand Krishna, then yes, then we have to perform bhakti. And then Krishna reveals Himself. Then only by revelation, that kind of revelation, we can understand what is Krishna's position. So it requires surrender. So this is why in the logic, the Vedic system is the deductive logic. Deductive logic means the logic of an authority. It starts with an authoritative statement. And this is Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness means using such kind of logic in the service of preaching, of course, to those men, to those people who don't accept the authority. Is what Srila Prabhupada stated. So then someone who doesn't accept the authority, then of course, then we will use the logic. Otherwise, logic, it's incomplete, it's inconclusive. We don't need logic, we just accept the Shastras. Because what are the Vedas? Apaurushaya. Yeah. Vedas are apaurushaya. Because the Vedas are source of themselves, practically. Of course, we know breathing of the Vishnu, but the knowledge comes from the Vedas. So it's kind of circular reasoning, which is also found in the logic itself. You'll find the knowledge within the knowledge. So that's the logic. But then again, what to understand about the source of everything, then one has to go beyond it, beyond that circle. That is then Krishna, the breath of Vishnu. So we can't understand anything that is within the limits of the logic, or not fully. To some extent, therefore, Nyaya can be utilized. And Srila Prabhupada definitely, as all the acharyas, they use the Nyaya, which could be used as mostly argumentation, but it can be used also to point out different analogies or different examples or different methods that are there to try to bring those who don't accept the authority to the point of accepting the authority. So it's deductive logic. Like one of the examples is that if we accept the premise, it is given that all men are mortal. And let's say we point somebody's name and we say this person is mortal. Okay, so then therefore all the men are mortal. So that actually that man is mortal. We use someone's name. So it's a deductive in a sense that it starts with authoritative statement, which is inclusive kind of that all men are mortal. So what would be inductive type of reasoning is that somebody may say maybe some men are mortal, and therefore this man is mortal, and therefore this man will also die. And then leaves it's kind of leaves a lot of scope for speculation and inclusive conclusion. If we introduce some new idea, if we expand upon the argument, because somebody may say that yes, we can maybe examine certain amount of men, certain number of men, and then we can say they're mortal. But then men are reproducing, and then in the future maybe there might be somebody who is not mortal. It leads to a lot of speculation. And that's induction, so therefore it doesn't lead to any ultimate final conclusion. So Nyaya can be used to a certain extent. Nyaya can be very helpful, and there may be a lot of interesting information and a lot of valuable knowledge that can be gained through the Nyaya philosophy, but it's just like Srila Prabhupada very often gives the example, there will be many zeros, but unless we put one in front of all these zeros, then all these zeros, they don't have any value. So logic can be very, very, very interesting, very intellectually satisfying, nourishing, but it doesn't necessarily lead to final conclusion. That's why it's not perfect. Like we know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he studied Nyaya, he was the expert, he was the best scholar in the Nyaya philosophy. And then later on, when he in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he met Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami states that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, before he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was just eating dry oil cakes of Nyaya, dry oil cakes. So what is dry oil cakes? That is explained. It's like when there is certain grass or let's say sugar cane or anything, so then sometimes they compress all of this and all the juice is extracted, and whatever it's left, that's made in the cake, and then that's given to cows, and they love that also, that's fine. But the real juice is out, real juice is not present. So it's a dry oil cake. It's a dry oil cake. So that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enlightened Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and gave him the real nectar, gave him the real essence. Now, why should we be eating, dry oil cakes of the Nyaya philosophy? So he gave him the nectar, the real mercy of understanding of everything, Sambandha, Videya, Prayojana. And this is also very interesting in Nyaya. Nyaya will give us different kind of opportunities to sum up, to come to a certain conclusion much more easily. And that's why this process given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sambandha, Videya, Prayojana, gives us more details. Like the example is given of a cow. If we would have to describe the cow, what would we say? What is cow? How do we know the cow is cow? By what? Simple question, no? Yeah, description of cow. How do you know this is cow? Let's say there's some certain animals here. How would you know this is cow and this is not cow? Yes. From the books. No, but you don't have a book. You have certain animals here. Let's say there are animals in the courtyard. How would you know that one of them is cow? I can't hear you, I'm sorry. Already experienced. No, but how do you know? By what? No, okay, but give a certain example. How do you know this is cow, practically? Yes. What kind of form? Okay, 4 feet. There are many other animals have 4 feet. Horns. Many other animals have horns. Hump. There are some other animals. Oh, the camel has hump also. So what is cow? You're using logic now. You see, Nyaya, it's inconclusive then, it's not complete. So you're bringing me, that's why Sambandha, Videya, Prayojana, you're giving more details. What is Jiva? What is its relationship? What is Bhagavan? So still, what is cow? How do you understand what is cow? Yes. I can't hear. That's okay, but we came to the practical demonstration of understanding. Yes. Okay. So we are getting a little closer. It gives milk. Of course, many other animals give milk, but also there are some other descriptions. And there's something they call it dolak, no, or something that skin on the neck, right? Beneath. That's something that's unique to the cow. So the more closer description, the more clear it becomes. The more clear it becomes. So that's why Nyaya it's helpful. Kind of summing up, bringing it down, bringing it closer, churning it up. To the point of understanding, like I said, Sambandha, Videya, and Prayojana. So to that extent, it's useful. It's a clearer understanding. But still, we don't necessarily understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like another example, it's given, Shastra Yonitvat, of course. Ramanujacharya said, the logic, it's not sufficient to understand position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By logic, it's not necessarily the one we understand who is Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you can't do that by logic because he's beyond the logic. We use the logic, but Krishna is beyond the logic. He cannot be squared within the logic. It's same in mathematics. I mean, it's same in the science as like Kurt Gödel's incompleteness theorem. There will always be some truth that are correct, but that you can't still prove them. There'll always be something like this. There are some axioms that are there, we use them, like the Vedas are also axiomatic, but you may not necessarily be able to prove them. So Vedas also work on that principles, or like two gases, you by pratyaksha, by demonstration, when you combine two gases, where is the water? You don't see that. So where is the method? So you may a priori kind of immediately dismiss this. But there is a method, there is a way that you can understand, and it can be proven that this is the case. So similar in the Vedic scriptures, that is the consciousness. Use the consciousness, you understand. It's not just, it's by, like Jiva Goswami states, he said it's by the certain symptoms. It's by the certain potencies. Like mantra also has a certain potencies. He argues about mantra in one of the commentaries in Srimad Bhagavatam, gives example of the seed and the tree. Anyway, many examples like this. So it said it's not just that by genetic code you can understand that a tree is present in the seed. It might not manifest. It's a certain potency. And you can understand, it gives example of the jewel also. You can understand the value of the jewel, the shyness of the jewel by its result, by the example that you get. So in the same way, it's a potency. So it's the consciousness. If we want to understand anything, we should understand what is the level, what is the purity of the consciousness. So it's not that by logic we can just confine Krishna and say, okay, this is Krishna, now we understand, or there is Krishna, or there is no Krishna. Because in the West, one of the arguments, again, it's the argument for design, teleological argument that is given. So Srila Prabhupada used it, but he didn't go further than that argument. It's one of the good arguments for existence of God, but it's not complete, it's not full. So you can't just use logic fully to understand who God is. So now what does that mean? Let's say we go to Juhu beach and we find a watch or something. So then what is the conclusion? You can draw several conclusions, of course, but the most common sense one would be that somebody made that watch. Now, it didn't just come by splashing of the waves and in the sand or something. There is a watch. But then it's incomplete. That's why Ramanujacharya said you can't understand who is God. It's incomplete because we don't know how many people and who has been involved, in making of that watch. So you can see the creation, you can understand, yes, there is a creation, there is a certain creator behind it, but who is that creator? Who is that absolute truth? Are there many? Is it one? That you can't say by this. So logic is incomplete. And then sometimes it's just like computers are based on logic. And then when there is some bug or problem, whatever, they enter into loop, and there's no way out of it. They cannot resolve the problem themselves. Computer cannot work itself out in that way. So then somebody from outside, what do you have to? You have to switch it off. You have to pull the plug. You have to wait till battery runs out or whatever. That's the only way to do it. So there's always somebody or something from outside that has to be involved. So logic is not perfect and complete. Anyway, there's so many interesting examples about how logic is incomplete. But it is a useful tool, and ultimately what we have to understand again from this presentation here that Srila Prabhupada gave, it's that if we want to understand Krishna, who is beyond all the squares, beyond all the confined limits of the logic, then we have to perform bhakti. We have to surrender, and then Krishna will reveal himself to us. Then we can understand how Krishna can expand into so many forms, how even his associates can expand in so many forms, how Krishna can have such amazing, wonderful pastimes. Then only everything will be revealed, to whichever extent then we surrender to Krishna. Hare Krishna. Any comments or questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Roy. One question and one comment, Roy. Which one should I go first?
Okay, comment.
So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in Chaitanya Charitamrita that regarding this tarka, he says, Maha jano yena gataspant. That shloka, he refers from Mahabharat Vanaparva. He says, Tarko pratishto srutayo vibhinna, nashao rishir yasya matam na bhinnam. People in general, they are quarreling each other to defeat others' opinions. So that's how they cannot understand Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why Mahajano Yena Gatas Panta, then we can understand.
Yeah, you have to accept authority, you have to accept deductive logic.
Question comes. Now, if you say that when we understand that we don't understand, then we really understand. So in that sense, when somebody hears this, many of people, they try to become lazy in reading Shastras, understanding Tattva. that I cannot understand anyhow, let me not attempt it. So how should we respond
That's why
to that?
Prabhupada very clearly says, he said you have to make an attempt, and that's the secret of bhakti. He says here. That's what it's in the purport here. To which level you surrender unto Krishna, you will get that revelation. Krishna will reveal. So that's an attempt. You have to make an attempt. So if you make an attempt to read the scriptures, Krishna will reveal. Like we know, you read Bhagavad-gita, it's not an ordinary scripture. Every time you can read the same verse and you'll get newer and fresher, different meanings out of it. So you have to make an attempt. To whichever extent you do that, to that extent you'll have the understanding. And you won't speculate about it because the absolute truth is self-illuminating. You don't need that there for any logic. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pointed out, it's just like the sun. There's no need of any other illumination. Otherwise you end in the infinite regress, you know. Because the logic is that, again, that logical loop. Anyway, that's what Aristotle argued about. But the point is, you have to accept certain authority. Without accepting certain authority, then without attempting to follow certain authority, then you won't get mercy, you won't get any understanding. Okay?
So even to understand that I cannot understand, we need some understanding.
Yes, you can understand that you can't fully understand, but by Krishna's mercy, if he gives you that mercy, then you can understand him to whichever extent he wants you to understand.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.